Hello there. I want to talk a little bit about sharpening stones in a different sort of way. Um, and one of the reasons that I recommend the stones that I do. First of all, it's a love of those stones because I've used them most of my life. But there's another element to it that I think is really valid and something that, you know, it's something I consider. For instance, my mother, when she passed, my sister asked me, she was taking care of mom's house and the things that were left there, mom's stuff. And she said, "Is there anything of mother's that you particularly want?" And my mother, I didn't pick something that was expensive or that meant anything to anybody else but me. It probably didn't even mean anything to my mother. But my mother had problems with her hands. And she had this little clay ball, basically, was what it was. And she squeezed it in her hands, with her hands as therapy, for years and years and years. I said, "I want that little clay ball." She said, "Well, that's nothing." I said, "I know." But Mom handled that for a decade or more. Her hands were always on that ball. I want that little ball of clay. That's what I want. That's what I want from my mother. Okay? Because she touched that and handled that. Her hands were always on it. Okay? Similarly for my dad, I have a couple of his guitars that he left me. Okay? Why? Why do I value these guitars? They're not expensive. You'd be lucky to get $150 for either one of them if you tried to sell them. One of them is in pretty poor condition. It's a very old guitar and it's got the old binding on it that's celluloid and it's rotting and cracking off the guitar and all of that. But that guitar is precious to me. Why? Because my dad played that guitar. Okay? It's not about money or even about uh, the intrinsic value of the object. It's because of who it belonged to. And they passed those things down. Okay? Um, if you Google here, well, not Google, but if you do a search here on YouTube and you search for things like cleaning old oil stones or flattening oil stones or things like that, okay, or conditioning oil stones or whatnot, you'll find a whole lot of hits, but a lot of them, what you'll find is somebody that got his grandfather's stones or his father's stones, and the stones that he has are the old aluminum oxide and the old silicon carbide stones that you can still buy today for change almost. Okay, some of them are good quality stones. Some of them are Norton, some of them are like the Carborundum Company, which is an old vintage company, and all that, but they're just aluminum oxide and silicon carbide stones. They were a dime a dozen, and you can buy them now. You can buy the Norton brand, which I think if you're going to buy stones like that, you ought to go for the Norton brand because they're not very expensive and they're the best quality of all of that you will get. Okay, but these are not Japanese natural stones. They're not old Thuringian or slate stones or Glen Llewellyn or however you pronounce that. Or okay, there might be some of those in there. They're not old codicils. Some of them might be in there, but the vast majority are cheap stones that you can go down right now and replace for a little bit of nothing. And they have no value whatsoever, but they have a value because of who they belong to before they got those stones, who they were passed down to. And that's why when I recommend stones, most of the time I recommend the Norton crystalline and the Norton India stones and Arkansas stones, because those stones I don't generally recommend, unless we're talking about straight razors and stuff like that. But for knife sharpening, I always recommend the older style oil stones. And the reason for that is they will endure. That uh, Norton India combination stone of coarse and fine that I use on this channel a lot, okay, that I will die before that stone wears out enough for it to matter, okay. As a matter of fact, I have a grandson. He's grown and on his own and stuff like that, but he's beginning to take an interest in woodworking. Now, he's got a good job and a good career path going, and he has the money to get whatever it is he wants. Okay? He's not going to be like his grandfather having to scrape stuff up or make stuff because he don't have it. I don't have the money to buy it, so I make it, kind of deal. Or I find an old one and restore it or whatnot. And I'm not complaining. I love doing stuff like that. I like taking something old, because that's what we're talking about here too. I like taking something old that people believe has passed its usefulness and restored it to the state that it should be in to do the job it was meant to do in my hands. And think about, who was it that used this 50 years ago? What kind of work did he do? That kind of deal. So it's not just will the stone do what I want it to do. It's will that stone last? Can I pass that? That's important to me. Nowadays, I was watching, my wife and I were watching TV last night. It was just quiet time for us. We don't really care what we're watching as long as it's not trash, you know. And we were watching Swamp People, I think. You might call that trash, but I think it's kind of humorous. But anyway, and there's not a bunch of foul language and trash like that on it. So, but there's a popular device, I won't mention what the name of the brand name or whatnot, but what it is it's basically a glorified toaster oven with a little reader on it, and you order food. Once you pay 5 times more than what a toaster oven is worth, you order food, prepackaged food, and you it comes with a little card, and you scan the little card on the on the oven once you put your stuff in, and it tells the thing, cook it at this temperature for this amount of time. And then, the advertisements say, I don't have to worry, I don't have to cook, yada, yada, yada. And the thing of it is, look, all that is a flippin' TV dinner. Okay? The only difference between that and shoving a frozen TV dinner in the oven and setting the timer yourself is you got a little card that you're flashing through, and you paid for that option big time on that oven. But you flash that little card up and it tells that thing set it at this time. There's not a dime's worth of difference. They just found another way to sell you a TV dinner or a microwavable dinner. But it's in a toaster oven instead. That's one. And you paid through the nose for that option. But number two, no one wants to learn anything anymore. Okay? You should know how to cook basic things. You can't feed yourself if you don't know how to cook. That's a basic kind of thing men and women ought to know how to do, at least on a basic level where they won't starve to death. And there's so much, it's kind of like there are different attitudes, like with the oil stones. People will knock them and say, well, they're slow. Well, if all you want to do is grind on a knife real quick and get it done because you don't care, you just want a sharp edge and you want to get it done as fast as you can. And I know there's more to it than that, but on a basic level, okay, whatever. I love passing a stone or passing a steel across a stone. I don't give a flying flip how long it takes. First of all, and second of all, they're not as slow as people say they are. But I'm just saying, there's value in things that have nothing to do with the utilitarianism involved in them. And particularly with knife sharpening, if you learn to take two hands and a stone and put a sharp edge on something, that's a skill you can use all of your life. And it's more rare now than it ever was. But the point of it is when the Lord takes me home, my stones go to my grandson. I want, like my brother, when he passed, my middle brother, okay, I got a bolo tie that he wore anytime he wanted to dress up. That was pretty much it. If it was a tie, it was a bolo tie. And his 3 months sober, 3 month or 6 month sober medallion from Alcoholics Anonymous, because he had fought addiction all of his life, and right before he died, he had some success. When he passed sober. Okay, those little things, they don't mean nothing to nobody else, but it doesn't matter. They mean something to me. So you have to understand, when I'm talking about sharpening, or when I'm recommending a stone or a tool or anything else, that's a consideration that I make. Don't pass up. Everything's not about money. Everything's not about intrinsic value. Everything's not about, not intrinsic value. Everything's not about practical value. Everything's not about efficiency and doing, because that's one of the things nowadays is quick, because we run around like a monkey with its tail chopped off, or a chicken with its head chopped off. That's a better analogy. 24/7. We don't take a time to relax. This is society nowadays. So all of that, look, I reject that, okay? And I don't really care what anybody thinks about it. So keep that in mind. The stones that I recommend, look, the technique that I use, the burr method that I teach, is a very old way to sharpen things. Okay? But it works. And if you draw a burr every single time, turn that knife over and draw that burr to the other side, do alternating strokes until that burr is removed, your edge will be perfect. It will be sharp as a laser. Every single time, you won't ever end up with a mediocre blade unless you compromised on that technique. So, and that's why I teach it. It's old school, but it's tried and true. Down through the ages, people figured out that flipping works. So, all right. I don't know. I got off on some other things, but in my mind, they're all related. And so, thanks for watching. I hope you got something out of it. Bless you. Later.